There is a subsect of your customers. And that can manifest as, they just buy 100 t-shirts where other people buy one. But more often it represents that they buy the $100 t-shirt when the other people buy the $10 one. If you don't have the $100 t-shirt, you say, I don't care about the majority of my potential revenue.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast brought to you by IndiePRO.io.
What's up, Indies? Welcome back to Creative Juice. This is the podcast where we cover growing and monetizing a fan base and building a music career with marketing strategies that are working right now based on what we see every single day inside of our music marketing agency and across our community of thousands of artists and bands. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. I'm your host, Jack McCarthy, and with me, as always, is Circa today to talk more about customers and fans and how to keep your customers as fans. Cirque, what's up, dude?
Not a whole lot, dude. Not a whole lot. I'm psyched to talk about this topic.
Me too, man. I think this will be a continuation of our conversation from last week where we were talking about creating first-time customers, because it was sort of natural to think about, well, once you have a customer, how do you keep a customer, right? This is sort of the crux of all business, I would say, is like, once you get a customer, then what? Most businesses, or many businesses, don't thrive just on first-time transactions and single transactions. Many of them focus on, how do I profitably acquire customers, sometimes even unprofitably acquire customers, in order to make more money over the lifetime of that customer.
Yeah, and this is not obvious math to anyone. So it's good that we're going over this, and definitely don't feel bad if it's sort of foreign to you how we're talking about this, because I think one of the biggest things that was a revelation for me getting into digital marketing and sales and business for the first time really was sort of the underlying physics of it. Getting customers, creating customers. And what was remarkable to me and the cool, exciting thing was how drastically it could be reduced in complexity down to just a few simple ideas and formulas. Jay Abraham's 3 ways to grow a business come to mind.
Yeah. Yep.
Where it's like, I don't have to learn a tome of business knowledge. I can work up from first principles being there's 3 ways to create a customer. Some people have reduced this actually down to 2, so it's even simpler. But those 3 ways are, you can get more sales, you can get more customers, right? This is the one that everyone thinks about. Everyone knows I can get more customers, and they spend their whole business trying to do that. But you can also increase the amount of transactions per customer with the average value of a transaction back to your business being static. So you could say, okay, I have 100 customers. Each of them on average buys 3 times. And the total value of that, let's say it's $30 in profit I make. So each one is worth $10. Well, if I can keep that constant, but increase it to 4, I've just grown my business by 33%.
Yep.
Increase it by another 1. So it's 5 now. I've grown it by 66. Yet again, I've doubled the business. So increasing amount of transactions per customer, keeping customer static, keeping value per transaction static. Or the third, increase the value of each transaction. You can lower your costs so that $10 per customer goes to 12, goes to 15, or you can raise your price, which is, I think, the most often ignored one, is raising your price because it's scary. But just think about it like that, right? I can get more customers. I can get the customers to buy more often or buy more times on average, or I can get those purchases to be on average worth more to me as a business owner. You can reduce all of business down to that. And it's like so simple because now you have a framework for like working up from first principles, how to approach things. And so that's just sorry for this aside. It's just like, that's the cool part to me, is that there's an underlying physics here that we can use to work up ideas from first principles. We don't have to follow playbooks necessarily.
I remember the first time that I learned that concept as well. And it was similarly for me a massive sort of brain exploding moment of like, wait, that's the way to grow a business. Something clicked. All of the mystery around like this is how you grow a business, and you could go to business school for this, and you could get an MBA, and all these sorts of things all boiled down to one. Like everything about marketing that I've ever learned from the earliest days of taking marketing classes in college, everything boiled down to this one 3-point framework. I remember learning it and just kind of scratching my head and being like, well, that doesn't seem so bad. Like, one of the 3 that we're going to talk about today is the second one, getting customers to buy again, increasing the number of transactions that a customer has with you. And I think this is sometimes criminally ignored in the music industry, like many direct to fan or D2C things are. And we wanted to talk about it today because we talked last week about getting customers for the very first time. But what do you do once you have them? We wanted to share some stories to hopefully inspire you to think outside the box of things you can do with your current customer base to keep them coming back, to help you grow your business. And I want to kick off with one that we alluded to a bit last week, and it was related to memberships. We'd actually talked about an artist who grew his customer base for the first time via live streams, where he was saying to his fans, hey, if you like these live streams and you want more of them, I do more of them inside of this community that I've built, and you can sign up for it here, and it costs $5 a month or $10 a month or whatever, alongside all these other perks. He had people signing up for a membership. Now, what was really cool about this, and I've seen this happen to a number of different artists, but this one is always a standout, is a few short years later, he actually had a fan buy his highest ticket membership level and bought it at an annual recurring rate. So instead of paying the monthly price, they were just like, I just want to buy it for the year coming up. And it was a $10,000 membership purchase, which is crazy. And I always love to bring this one up because it's a great example of what can happen when fans really love you and they're made an offer for something that would be super valuable to them, that they'd be willing to part with a lot of money for it. High ticket offers. This is one of the biggest reasons that I recommend for any artist that has a membership that you include some kind of high price tiers within it. Even if no one buys it, because even if no one buys it, someday one might buy it. And that could be a lot of revenue coming into you for that one person that does. It doesn't have to be right for everybody, just has to be right for one. And that's what happened here. And artists fight me a lot on this. Like, I don't think we need to have a $200 a month ticket. Like, no one's going to buy that. I don't give a shit if no one buys it this month. What I care about is that if the people who are in there love this so much that eventually 2 years down the line, they say, oh yeah, I want to spend $200 a month, or I want to spend, $20,000 a year on this. That's why you need to have it there. This is a really good example of that.
It's not even that. It's like, here's what I care about. I care that someone would be in your store, be of means where $200 a month is a joke to them and it's not a big deal, and want to give you $200 a month, and you have no way for them to do it.
Yes.
They don't even buy a $10 t-shirt because it's not even a consideration for them. They go to sites and they look for the most expensive option because that's just the kind of person they are. Guess what? There's millions of people like that. Millions. And just because you aren't one doesn't mean they don't exist. Like, I grew up, I'm not going to say I grew up entirely poor, because until I was 11, I was fairly well off in terms of my family. And then from 11 to 19, on welfare, very impoverished. So I kind of seen both sides, but I grew up sort of my adolescence, my formative years in terms of my relationship to things like money were while I was on welfare. And so it's hard for me to put myself in those shoes of someone who goes to a website, looks for the most expensive option, goes to a catalog of products and filters price highest to lowest. We all do lowest to highest for the most part, right? But those people exist. They're very much out there, and they're not represented by most businesses, and thereby they don't transact with most businesses. They transact with premium businesses who know their psychology and have that offering that fits their shopping style. They want to buy the most expensive thing. They want to go to Starbucks and grab the espresso machine, right?
Right.
So you need to think about that. You need to have an answer for those people. It's not just about, maybe someone will ascend from this lower tier. It's about that person who can't even see the lower tier because it's too low for them, right? You need to not only accommodate people who can't afford anything than, greater than the lowest tier, and the people who would never buy anything lower than the highest tier.
I wanted there to be some intentional silence after
It's just let that sink in.
It's so good. That's so true, dude. And I think that's a hard pill for a lot of artists to swallow. It's like you have customers or potential customers in your fan base that might look like that. And by not having an offer available to them, you are doing a disservice. And this applies across the spectrum of offerings as well, and across the spectrum of customers. I'm not saying that this doesn't only apply to people who will spend the most amount of money with you. It also applies to people who will spend any amount of money with you. That's why we're talking about this in general, is like, you should have offers and you should make offers because your fans want to buy something from you. They want to buy something from you, or they're going to go buy from somebody else, and they'd probably rather buy from you.
Yes. It's also the case that they're over most. I struggle to categorize the fields for which it applies. But if you've never heard of it, the 80-20 principle or the Pareto principle, which says more roughly and thus more accurately, says that a majority of your outputs will come from a minority of your inputs. And in this case, a majority of your revenue will come from a minority of your customers. Less than 50% of your customers will represent more than 50% of your revenue. And that can get quite violent. It could be 10% of your customers representing 90% of your revenue easily. That happens. And so what you do is, when you don't have this higher tier offering, it does a couple of things. So we'll address the others, but the first thing you do is you say, hey, the majority of my revenue part, don't care. Don't care. Give me the minority of my revenue. That's all I want. Because in order for that to be true, in order for a minority of your customers to represent a majority of your revenue, it must be the case that they have a higher value per customer, right? There is a subsect of your customers, and that can manifest as, they just buy 100 t-shirts where other people buy one. But more often it represents that they buy the $100 t-shirt when the other people buy the $10 one.
Yep.
If you don't have the $100 t-shirt, you say, I don't care about the majority of my potential revenue. So that's one thing you do. Another thing you do is you endeavor so hard to make sure that the people who aren't of means aren't left out, that you give them no frame of reference to anchor the savings. You give them no $100 t-shirt to then realize that the $10 t-shirt is a good bargain. Okay. And we are animals of comparison, right? We actually do not care if we're poor or rich. We care if there's richer people than us living next door. That's when we really get upset psychologically. And so if you have nothing to anchor it to, then you will not understand the actual value to cost comparison. If you are truly like, oh, I'm the only artist who offers $10 t-shirts. It's difficult to even print t-shirts under $10. I'm the only artist who offers them. Great. No one cares because they can't see it. They're blind to it. They have no frame of reference. You did not put anything on the page that would indicate that's really low because there is no high.
Right.
I know that sounds like, it can easily sound like marketer or business person justification for being greedy. That's what I misinterpreted it as at first. But it's actually like a valid, rigorously documented, like born out in experiments, empirical claim that is validated by the literature and the research. It's a fact.
It's not just business cope.
Yeah, exactly.
I want that to sink in.
Yeah, that's it.
I want that to sink in. I really do. And at risk of beating a dead horse here about this, I want to share another example related to this. This goes back to the concept of launches, which we talked about in our last episode as a way for people to get first-time customers. Also apply to repeat customers, right? Because your fans that have purchased from you in the past, they're probably coming back around. Well, hopefully they're coming back around for your next record release. And there was a story just this year from a client at the agency who we were running a crowdfunding campaign with for their new record release. And they had done some crowdfunding campaigns in the past, but this one was very specifically successful because, one, it reached its funding goal in like 4 days or 5 days, I think it was, really fast. But what was most interesting about it was the reason that happened, the reason that it was so successful was because the band included in this campaign higher ticket items. And this was one of the first times that they had done that. They had a few super high ticket items in this crowdfunding campaign, kind of ranging from super low, like $10 items all the way up to like $4,000 house concert offerings. And what was really interesting about this was, and I actually reviewed the campaign before we recorded this episode so that I could get my numbers. At that $4,000 house concert tier example, 4 people bought. Those weren't people that, just didn't want to.
Right. There is no gas tank that they emptied out of to make the concert happen, right?
Exactly. They weren't coerced into doing this. It was something that they wanted to do. They saw it and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this would be amazing. Like, I could be a part of the creation of this band's record that I love, and I could have a house concert at my house, and I could have my name as the producer credit on the record. Like, sick. I really want that." And that's the reason that this campaign worked so well, was that they were able to not only attract new customers in it, but also engage the ones that were already customers and engage them in a way that was more valuable than they had before. And that worked so well for them. And there was a number of different examples of these sort of higher ticket offerings, but this is a really good example of how you, one, make your customers more valuable to you as your business, but also you get the opportunity to give more to your customers by doing this.
Yeah.
You can't give someone a house concert for $100. You can't do that.
Right. What Jack's illustrating here is that it's a difference of kind, not of quantity or magnitude.
Right.
There are certain things that you just can't provide, below certain cutoff points in terms of like cost. You should be endeavoring to offer the full range of experiences insofar as it's possible. It also costs you nothing, like, to define a service or product that you do not actually like. If I want to offer something, I don't actually have to create it. I don't have to rehearse it, like the actual fulfillment of the service. I just have to know that I can. And the research required, the work upfront required to know that I can fulfill something is not equal to the work required to actually fulfill it.
Right.
It's a smaller amount, right? Thereby, I don't actually have to do all the implied work in order to offer something. It's often way more lightweight to just offer it.
Yeah, let's put that in the exact terms, right? The cost to fulfill, or the effort to fulfill a house concert, it's a good amount of effort, right? You have to buy plane tickets or travel to wherever you need to go. You need to actually perform. There's probably some rehearsal. You need to set up. You need to prepare. You need to have, whatever you're going to have as far as like little goodies or things that you bring for the performance. You need to have your merch ready to go. Your instruments need to be ready to rock. All of that. That's if you're actually fulfilling it. But the prep work to know that you need to do those things, maybe ballpark out some costs, that's nothing.
It's nothing.
It's just your time, mostly. And like, a handshake agreement with your band, if you have a band, that they're going to be willing to do this if somebody raises their hand and says, okay, I want to buy it.
Yeah. And it's like, man, what an optimization, right? Like, what an optimization. You should be finding and exploiting all of those that exist, which is like, wow, I can defer the pain of fulfillment to after the point that I have already experienced the joy of being paid, of having a customer who wants to buy it, right? Like, that is such a cheat code, right? It's like so good. It's like, oh, I could just in one afternoon spec out like that I can fulfill this thing, offer it. And then not only am I safeguarded from the possibility that someone of means who wants to buy that thing would come to my site or come into my world and have nothing to buy. I have completely removed the risk of that. I have infinitely increased the potential benefit of having offered that product, right? From 0 to any amount is an infinity % increase. And I actually don't have to suffer the pain of fulfilling this until the money's in the bank. That's so good.
It's amazing. It's truly a cheat code. I couldn't agree more. I wasn't planning on us talking so high ticket so early on in this episode. So I want to bring it back down to maybe a bit of a level playing field for anyone who's like, okay, well, I don't have any repeat customers yet, guys. Like I've been selling one product for a little bit. Now what? Let's talk about that, because I've got an example here of another band who they were doing just that. They were creating customers by selling their first record, and it was going very well. And we wanted to keep those customers buying again. So what did we look to do? They started running regular sales promotions. And we talk about this a lot on the podcast, but I wanted to give a very specific example of what they did. And what they did was they started running regular promotions to existing customers for new merch that they were dropping every single month. They were specifically like brainstorming a new shirt that they dropped every single month. They were pricing it a bit lower than what the prices of other t-shirts on their store would be. So they were giving fans a bit of an early access kind of discount here. And we would run email marketing campaigns and ad campaigns to sell this merch. And at the end of the month, the shirts would go away. They'd go back into the vault. So very limited edition, very exclusive. And this worked really well. And you can spin off ideas like this for yourself to get your existing customers buying from you again at any a clip that you really want to. You could do this monthly. You could do this quarterly. There's a lot of ways that you can do this kind of thing. And you can build sales promotions in all sorts of creative ways.
Yeah. I mean, one caveat here that probably is important to include just so operationally you're like it's built into your expectations is that if you are acquiring customers through a shortcut, one such shortcut would be free plus shipping and handling, right? Free plus shipping and handling is a trade-off of a campaign. You are trading off value of first purchase for more first purchases. You are also kind of trading off customer validation, right? Contact validation, lead validation. You're not qualifying your customers. They didn't really have to do much to become a customer. So they are fundamentally a little less quality than if the entry point to being your customer costs $10, $20.
Yeah. Well said.
Because only people who are truly motivated will make it through that $10, $20. But people who could not be very motivated at all will pay the $5 shipping. So necessarily, you are bringing the quality of your customer down closer to the quality of someone who signs up for an email list.
Yeah.
Like they're not as certain to do follow-up purchases and be your fan for the long haul as a customer created through, a little bit higher barrier to entry. That's fine. It's a trade-off that's like actually like we're very happy to accept in a lot of cases. But that means your expectations for follow-up purchase have to then be reduced. You're like necessarily your follow-up purchase rate, the amount of people who make a first purchase from your business compared to the amount of people who make a second purchase, it is expressed as second purchases over total customers. That percentage, it's going to be lower, right? It's going to be it's going to be in between the rate of second purchase if you had a higher tier entry point, $10, $20, and the rate of first purchase from email. It's going to be somewhere in between those two numbers. So if you can adjust your expectations down in doing that, it's totally worth doing. And what does that mean, that you're not going to get any second purchases? No. It means you're probably going to get the same amount of second purchases as if your entry point was $10 to $20. It's no skin off your back. Your denominator is going to grow, and that's going to freak you out. It wouldn't freak you out if you were looking at 20 out of 80 people bought a second product within the next 6 months. But because you grew 80 to 160, 200, 300, 1,000, 20 starts to look really sketchy.
Yeah.
But that's not because these aren't real customers. It's not because, you didn't do your job. It's because the denominator arbitrarily was inflated.
This is a really good point, and I think that this exists at a variety of different kind of customer creation checkpoints.
Yeah, also traffic, the same principle kind of can be transposed over traffic to email address kind of conversion points. Yeah, this is true of a lot of conversion
I've seen this as well with like artists that sell, for example, like virtual events. We saw a lot of that during 2020, 2021, 22. Yeah, where a lot of artists were selling virtual events and then struggling to then sell those people physical merch and wondering why. And the difference was just that, well, these people are customers, yes, but what they bought from you initially, what they wanted from you initially was, a virtual hangout with you. And now what you're offering them is merch. And so fewer of them might want that. And that's okay. You just know that. You set your expectations accordingly.
Yeah, it's important you realize that doesn't mean don't do it. It just means don't have unreasonable expectations. Don't fail to like ever update your expectations based on what you're deploying as a strategy.
Yeah, yeah. This is a good point to make in general, I think, about running sales promotions over time, right? Because a lot of times, especially if you're in like the middle of a release cycle where the monetization events that you're doing throughout the release cycle are, you're selling your new thing and you're selling that over time, but then also you're sprinkling in flash sales or new merch drops and things like that, running sales promotions around holidays. Those happen as, smaller milestones that seek to even out revenue spikes. But some days that evening out is going to be higher than others. You might have you might have a Memorial Day sale going into the summer that actually crushes it, or a Black Friday sale that absolutely slays. And then you might do something for Halloween that just kind of sucks and people aren't really interested in your monster t-shirt that you made or something like that. And that's okay.
The hell, dude.
Yeah, the thing about creating repeat customers, especially when it's around new product launches or sales promotions or, creative offers that you're spinning up, is some just aren't going to perform super well. And that's okay. Like 80% of campaigns might fail. And the 20% again keep you going in the direction that you want to go. Whereas the 80% have, maybe middling results or just do okay. And that's fine. That's just, again, that's that Pareto principle that you deal with.
Yeah. And it's like, it speaks to sort of a more fundamental understanding, maybe explicitly spoken, talked about, recognized, but maybe just implicitly. And it only comes with sort of multiple years of doing this, is that really when you're marketing, it's a lot like sculpting, where we produce a lot of byproduct far more than we produce finished distilled result. There are tons more people who don't click your ad than who make it to your website. There are tons more people who do click your ad than who make it to your website. We won't talk about
Yeah.
There are tons more people who visit your website than end up on your email list. There are tons more people who end up on your email list than become customers. Throughout the whole process, the thing you mostly produce is waste, is people who aren't right. And so really the task, the goal becomes eliminating not right people. And you can sort of condition what you get excited about to the act of removing not right people. You can get really actually jazzed about when you are able to disinclude, right? Or remove people from a subset. All these people are not right. Great. That's great. Because now I don't have to deal with them later on down the chain, where what I'm doing to get their attention and get them to do X is way more expensive. If you can remove them early, the expense you're paying, for example, in order to get someone to a contact form on a website, it might cost you $1.50. In order to get someone to view an ad, it might cost you like a cent or less just to get the impression. Wouldn't you rather that you don't get them to the contact form? Wouldn't you rather that the ad itself makes them repulsed? Right? If you're not the right person, my ad should prevent you from ever clicking. That's the goal of my ad. It's not to get the most people to click. It's to ensure that the people who do click are not going to not do the next action. So it should be a filtrative vehicle, your ad. And that's sort of that's like the sort of seeing the matrix in marketing is like you start to realize, oh wait, I'm not attracting people. I'm supposed to be repelling people. I'm supposed to be getting all the wrong people out of the boat before the boat goes to Valhalla.
Yeah. Yep. That's good. That's super good. I'm glad you touched on that because it goes all the way down, right?
Yes.
That follows you all the way down to your most engaged, highest LTV fans. That principle follows you all the way there to the deepest levels of your business. Man, I think we close off with that.
Not a bad place.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have customers, think about these stories that we shared today as ways to keep your customers in your world and keep them purchasing from you and maybe purchasing some more expensive things as we've talked about or purchasing more often. I hope you can use these and go forth and crush.
Go scare people away with your ads.
Go do it. Peace out, Indies.